Have you ever heard of the FIRE movement? It represents this unusual group of people who retire early, really early, before 50 and some in their 30s even. FIRE stands for Financial Independence Retire Early. And while there are plenty of online resources explaining how, is anyone asking why? Why question the normal path of life? You know, the American dream. Well, since the pandemic, a large percentage of people have reimagined normal and recalibrated their lives, myself included. And that's exactly what my next guest did, but way before anyone was vlogging van life and doing debt-free screams. She's considered the mother of the FIRE movement and has appeared on hundreds of shows, including Oprah and Good Morning America. She's the co-author of the international bestseller, Your Money or Your Life: Transforming Your Relationship with Money and Achieving Financial Independence. She's also the host of a podcast called What Could Possibly Go Right? And today, we're going to step outside the how-tos and investigate the how-comes, the heart side of the balance sheet that explores the question, financially free to do what? Local food fanatic, social change agent, chronically curious, Vicki Robin. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you. That was a great introduction. I've never had that one before. I would want to meet that woman, you know?
Nailed it. I'm so glad. A lot of people don't talk about money outside of the math or outside of behavior. And so when I first heard you start to talk about that on, somebody else's podcast, I was very intrigued because without the heart of it, it's just, I don't know, it's a little empty. You know what I mean?
Oh, I do know what you mean. Yep. And that's what I encountered. Well, let me go back. I started living this in 1969. That was ancient history. And when I met the person who became my co-author, Joe Dominguez, who explained to me what he had done in the 1960s to retire early because he looked ahead at people who were successful and he realized he didn't want to be there. Mm-hmm. And I think this isn't just unique to Joe. I think a lot of people get in their 20s and they start down the path and they realize, nope, back out. And there's got to be another one, even though it's not very evident. So that's what Joe did. And the plan that he developed was simply saving money and investing it securely. And so it evolved to minimalizing his lifestyle. So I met him and I took the money that I had earned to date through my young life and I invested it in a way he suggested, which was in long-term treasury bonds, which at that moment had a very high percentage on them. And in order to live a life where I was the sovereign of my own mind and time, I did not want to sell my intellect, my curiosity, my creativity. I didn't want to sell it to somebody. I didn't want to, and I wasn't really a big rebel. I just knew that I would rather, if possible, have dominion over my own mind and thoughts and my experiences. And I would want to make of life what I could make of it, whatever that was. And that involved a lot of different things that I did and learned along the way. Sometimes people are impressed that I lived on $100 a month for 6 years of my life because I wanted to be free. I used to say I buy my freedom with my frugality every day. And I learned to hunt, butcher, garden, can, dry, preserve, survive several winters in Wisconsin. I learned all those things. I learned to rebuild an engine in my car. I learned to build a motorcycle from a boxcar. I was just like passionate. I want to learn how to live on this earth because I was taught how to live in the consumer society and I didn't want to. But so how do you do something else? So I have lost even the track. What was your question?
I told you it would just flow from you, and it has.
Yeah,
I love it.
Really.
Well, I don't think I really had a question. I was just kind of making an observation of,
why
of what we're taught. Yeah, and the why. And what you're talking about is quality of life. And I certainly value freedom to that extent. I know it's not everyone's top drivers, but I think I heard you say once that money is your life energy or something to
Right.
that. Can you
We
explain that?
trade. Yes, that is actually the key transformational element of your money or your life. It's just chock a block with really great ideas and wisdom, et cetera. But what really does it for people is we suggest that they calculate what we call the real hourly wage. In other words, you think you're trading an hour of your life for $25, let's say. But when you take into account taxes, car fare, daycare, office, you know, clothes. I mean, right now after the pandemic, nobody needs anything but a nice top and
Right.
pajama pants. But
I
there's
mean,
a
the back of
lot
my
of
hair isn't even fixed. I mean, it's just the front.
but I mean, there are a lot of costs associated with your job. There's the time you invest in watching YouTube videos so you know how to do things. I mean, that's the world we live in today. I mean, a lot of people, as you say, a lot of people recalibrated their lives during the pandemic because they had to figure out how to make money without leaving the house. And so there's been a lot of people learning, et cetera, trying to figure out a way to make money in a way that they can stay home. Anyway, but this real hourly wage, whatever it is now, probably the time it takes to educate yourself in order to code or in order to design websites, whatever it takes, you invest a lot of time in building the business in your mind and having your business plan. And that also always has to go into your calculation of the exchange of time for money. You can sort of like start your business and you get, in your first week, you get 10 sales and you got $100. You think wow, so I make $100 a week, but not really, because it's how many months did it take you to get there? So at the end of the year, you think, oh, I've made, $50,000, for example. And so that's not $50,000 for 1 year, that's $50,000 for 5 years it took you to get there. So it's just telling the truth about the amount of your life energy, the amount of your time, attention, care, intelligence, everything that goes into earning X per hour.
And that's not to
So
discourage people like, oh, you're less important than you are. It's to change their
no,
spending outlook, right?
it's not it. Okay, so it's a little bit different from that. Um, it's really the whole course, the whole thing is based on telling yourself the truth about things, not in a judgmental way. Our mantra in the book is no shame, no blame. We're going to like step out of the mindset you were trained into by our society, by your parents, by everybody who wished you well and hoped you would survive this birth to death journey. We're going to step outside of it and we're going to say, does this work for me? Who am I? What am I up to? And is this activity aligned with my best guess about who I am? So when we're doing this life energy calculation, it's not like don't waste your time or don't start a new business. Just go and work on Wall Street and get your boodle and get out. It's about telling the truth about how much you're exchanging an hour of your life for, realizing that your life hours are limited. Your desires can multiply, your fantasies can multiply, but you have a limited amount of time. How do I want to spend my one wild and precious life? That's really the question. So you start to see, okay, let's use a traditional job so we're not out there in la la entrepreneur land. But let's say you're receiving from some boss somewhere $25 an hour for your labor. So then you have to calculate the extra expenses, the education, et cetera, and the transportation, all of the expenses associated with you having this job. And then you have to calculate the extra hours, whether it's education or recovery at the end of the day. You just take a look at, like, am I really trading an hour of my life for $25? Or have I really invested so much time and money in this, getting to this hour, that I'm really trading my life energy for $5 an hour? Honestly, after everything, and what is your disposable income? And so when you take a look at that, then you translate, then you go over and you go and you buy the makeup or, the shampoo or whatever. And instead of just saying, this shampoo or that one, or which one is cheaper, you just say, okay, I'm investing an hour of my life or however much of my life in this shampoo? Is it worth it? I mean, I'm investing 20 hours of my life in this cool pair of boots. Am I going to be happily spend another 20 hours of my life paying off the boots? If so, yeah, great boots, perfect boots. And so we say, ask the question of your purchases, not obsessively like, oh, I'm going to buy a little pack of chewing gum, but, like at the end of the month, you just tally it all up and you say, okay, so I spent 50 hours of my life on clothes, whatever.
Yeah.
And then you say, is it aligned with my purpose in life? Am I going forward in the direction I want to go by doing this? And also, is it making me happy, really? Or is it just sort of like a passing satisfaction of a fantasy that goes quickly from the joy of, carrying it out of the store to the burden of getting it out of your trunk and into the house and sort it out? So that's the idea of money as life energy. It is a way to actually honor yourself, your life energy, the value of your life. And you only want to have things in your life that serve you. That's your enough point. You only want to have enough to empower yourself to create, give, do, experience, correct the things that you say are important. For me, I'll just say, I am I think I should have been trained as a social worker because I'm always thinking about the collective, So I have had, after I did a lot of learning and living in the woods and things like that, I really devoted myself to, how are we as a society? How are we as humanity? How are we as nature? And if we're not doing that great, what can I do in this whole mix of things that would make things a little bit better? I spend my life on that. That is my self-assigned job. That's how I spend my one wild and precious life.
Well, that's what you meant in by your money is in service to your values. And that's why I love this so much, because when I think about financial strategy, I mean, it feels like a game. It feels like, oh God, like, do you know, I don't know how you felt about group projects in school, but I hated them. And it was like, God, I just got roped into this game. I don't want to play with people I don't like. And that's how I feel about money strategy. It's like, this is bullshit. Like, I don't want to do this. But what you're talking about is not even opposite. It's just like a total different plane, because you're talking about giving intention to how you want to spend your moments on earth. And then, I mean, kind of reverse engineering it from there. Okay, now you're in this moment on earth right now. What's your next move? And it really, I don't know, I think it paints a deeper picture. It opens up a lot more thoughtfulness about how we live and how we live with each other compared to a race. And does that make sense?
It does. And another piece of the teaching in Your Money, Your Life is that you need enough money to live in this society. We're not just going to all like put on sackcloth and,
Right.
go out around with begging bowl. We actually, how much do we need materially that we need to extract from the consumer economy, consumer capitalism, if you will? What do we need? I mean, we need a phone. Okay. You evaluate the phone. Is it going to serve my needs? Not the bells and whistles and, the storage, but what do I need in order to be the person I want to be? It's not minimalism. It's not eco-consumption, although that would be, one of my values. It really is just what's the bundle of things that I need in order to go forth in the world and do what I want to do. And so you go into the money economy not with your identity longing to be, to belong, but you go in with your sovereign self saying, I want to maximize my income without compromising my health or integrity. I want to get some money. The purpose of making money is money. It's but see, the thing is that's the other confusion is we confuse our identities
Hmm.
with our jobs. Very reasonable because that's how everybody else confuses us. Everybody else assesses us by what we do, how much money we're making, what clothes we're wearing, whatever. People are always trying to pigeonhole us
Do you think that's
into
changing
something.
though? Because I've
It
noticed
might be.
it might be because I mean your original version of your book came out in the early 90s, so I'm sure you've observed some differences since then. I've just observed some differences in the last, I'll say, 10 years, where definitely since the gig economy started, I feel like that kind of changed people's response to, so what do you do? The dreaded question
Yeah,
at
for
networking
sure.
events. And instead of going, I'm a finance consultant, they would pick the thing that they do that best represents what they're passionate about, not necessarily the thing that pays their
Totally.
mortgage. So I kind of wonder if there's a shift. Have you
I
observed any
think
of that?
so. Oh, totally. What I have noticed. Yeah, I am formed in another time. By the way, I'm 77. I was born in 1945. I grew up in the 1950s. So, yeah, a very different time. And so the oatmeal of unconsciousness that I've been swimming out of is not what people are swimming in now. And I do notice that. I mean, I notice when people put up websites, they might tell you that their skills, and they're not telling you their skills in terms of like which programs they could use. They're telling you, I love to write great copy to make my clients shine, and that's part of, and I also love pickleball. you know,
Right.
People are actually coming out from behind the screen of their roles. And I mean, they're somewhat quantifying themselves. It's all sales pitches, for like
Yeah.
a lot of social media is just curated sales pitch for I'm a cool person like me.
It's manufactured
So
reality.
yeah, so we're not quite out of it in terms of the basic, you know, primate psychology of, hierarchy, dominance and sex. I mean, we're still, yeah, we still got that back there functioning. And the other thing that I would say is that increasingly, we are in a society that um, is hostile to our sovereignty. Um, Maybe let me try that again because I don't think that's quite it. Um, the time for self-reflection, the time for getting beneath the self-presentation, the curation of self, getting beneath that and asking yourself that question. I think it's less because we're so entrained in this social media world.
Hmm.
So, because the one of the ways that humans know where we are is it in comparison with someone or something else.
Yeah.
I'm behind the tree, I'm in front of the tree. She's ahead of me in a career, behind me. We are that's sort of like part of our gyroscope. Where are we? And so we're constantly comparing ourselves with others. And if we're not, maybe you're an incel, or maybe you're, I mean, if you're not, then there's, you usually end up being quite isolated and antisocial, if you will. So I think that is a challenge now that wasn't as intense for us because we didn't have so many inputs. And you could say, okay, this is society, and then this is what I want to do. I'm going to be different. Now you're just in a web of like a menu, like which Barbie or Ken am I going to be?
That's interesting. You've talked about in some of your literature about the fulfillment curve. Do you think social media has changed the way that works? And definitely, can you explain what the fulfillment curve is?
Oh, good. Okay, you're leading me down the lovely path of talking about the teachings in the book. Yeah, so the fulfillment curve is just a heuristic device. It's just a way to picture something that goes on for us, and basically, it's an answer to it. Tries to answer the question: how much is enough of anything, and how do I know? And I think even just like a personal thing now, it's like here I am 77 and I'm looking back on my life. And I can tell that there's a part of myself that is evaluating how much achievement is enough, how much, was my life. Because I don't have much space ahead to correct for anything. So I'm just sort of like, okay, here I am in the mountaintop of my life. Feel pretty good about it, but I can tell that there's the judging mind in there.
Right.
Shoulda, woulda, coulda, da 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 da. So this fulfillment curve is helping people at the level of money and stuff. Think about how much am I satisfied with my bundle? Now it's my bundle of experiences and my bundle of contributions and, wisdom and whatever. But, with your money and stuff is like, how much money and stuff do I need in order to express myself fully the way I want to express myself in this world? However that is, academics, art, gaming, whatever it is, whatever you want to do. And so what we say is there's a vertical axis that is satisfaction. It's a chart. Vertical axis is satisfaction. Horizontal axis is money spent or stuff acquired. And so it just says there's a sort of a progress through your life where there's some things you acquire that are basic survival, like roof over your head, enough food in your belly, out of the rain, not too hot, not too cold. And then there's things that enable you to function in the society, that really increase your capacity, like education, like maybe maybe I don't know about buying or renting, but just having a more secure place to live, learning skills, developing experiences, like building your networks, whatever that is, that part of life. In Hinduism, they might call it the householder part of life, that part of life where you're establishing yourself in the world. And so those things you acquire to fulfill those consciously are important. And then there's things like the luxuries of life, the things you don't really need, but when you get them, they're like, I love that. So I don't know, maybe it be, you've always wanted whatever it is, a Tesla, whatever that thing is, or, you want to move and live in rural Vermont or, whatever that thing is. It's like, you've got a house, you've got everything, you've got it all going, but there's something that could be better. But the thing is about these things that could be better, sometimes they are better. Sometimes they're not. Sometimes they are a big disappointment. Sometimes they're a drag on your life energy. But because you've come to identify acquisition of things, experiences, recognitions and credit, because you've come to identify an increase in those to an increase in satisfaction. We're going up the satisfaction on the fulfillment curve. We get in the habit of acquisition as a route to happiness. Are you tracking this now?
I am tracking that. Yeah, it's kind of like
Yeah.
I think you've like the joy to stuff ratio.
Right. Yeah. Right. Exactly. As we say in Your Money, Your Life, having a high joy to stuff ratio. So there's a point at which there's sort of an inflection point. You've gotten happiness from money and stuff, because you built your life. You built a foundation for your life, but then you're habituated to acquisition. And so when you're dissatisfied, you think, oh, maybe it's a different car, or
Right.
maybe it's a larger house, or maybe it's a graduate degree. Maybe I'll get my master's. Maybe I'll get my PhD. It's like, or like, oh, that's not working. Maybe I'll go into therapy, like,
Maybe
whatever
I'll
it
get
is. Like,
therapy. Yeah, there's all.
yeah, yeah. It's like, it's a constant. Then you get into what they call in Buddhism the hungry ghost. You get
Yes.
into
Yeah.
the endless attempt. It's sort of like the end state of consumerism is just a big mouth and no stomach. It's just like you just keep shoveling it in, and there's no capacity for satisfaction.
And everything in
And
our society supports that habit, as you said, the habituation towards
totally,
acquisition. Have you observed anything that successfully undoes the consumerism mindset?
absolutely, self-reflection. That's what we're trying to induce through the program in Your Money, Your Life is those points of self-reflection. It's like I used to try to explain the program as, um, a whole systems approach to the flow of money and stuff through your life, guided by feedback mechanisms based in both self-interest and higher values. So basically, number one, we set up a process of observation. What am I actually doing? What am I, in this case, for consumerism, what am I buying? And then you say, you have this self-reflection. Is the money I'm spending buying me a life I love? And introducing self-reflection actually is the point. That's the feedback mechanism. That's the governor, if you will, on the system. That's the mechanism in the system that actually adjusts your behavior according to your true satisfaction. Whereas the system that we're working in is more, better, and different stuff. And so the feedback mechanism is, I have enough. Oh, but now I don't. Oh, I need more. I have a phone, but I need a better one. I have a car, but I need a better one. I have an education. I need a better one. I have a husband. I need a better one. It's just like, that's, we're in a system that has no governor, that is based in our true satisfaction. So I think that capacity for self-reflection, whether you do it through, like a monthly accounting, and you look at how much you spent on your clothes and you say, wow, that was not worth 50 hours of my life. And then you go back into spending, not with anything normative, like I will only spend $200 on my clothes. You just, like, you're standing there in front of a cool blouse and you say, that's going to be 15 hours of my life. I don't think it's worth it. It's cute. And so the power, your power as a consumer is what you can say no to. Not no to all the time, but this is all tools for consciousness, for actually consciously directing your life energy towards goals that you yourself say are important.
And this is why is this what you mean when you talk about growing yourself spiritually in relationship to your money journey? Because this sounds all very not money-ish, but does come across to me at least as very, spiritual.
Well, what is spiritual? It is that self-reflection. It is stepping outside of the normal stream of things and re-choosing. And so it is just applying tools of consciousness to money, and the byproduct of which is people, by and large, will spend about 20 to 25% less. That's, our old data from, whatever, 40 years ago. I don't have data on that now. I'm not really interested in getting data on it. But our old data was that people, on average, if they did this approach, they ended up in 6 months spending about 20 to 25% less. Many people couldn't even remember what they used to spend money on. Or if they can remember, they think, I'm better off. So basically, it's to break the thrall of the consumer culture. Financial independence for me is 90% in consciousness. It's not in the amount of, it's not in the fat fire, skinny fire, or whatever, barista fire, all these things.
Did you say barista fire?
Yeah, barista fire is the idea that you can have enough money to like, only work part-time.
Oh, okay. See, I'm not in all of that.
Don't worry. Let's not even talk about it.
Okay,
I'm
we
not
won't
even
even talk
interested
about
in it.
it. But I love your
Yeah.
point.
No, it's just, and so, I think it's a big challenge to create a foundation, a financial foundation for yourself in life, whether it's good habits, whether it's savings, whether it's some investments, whether it's skills that you can sell for money. These are all like foundation blocks. But that's not the purpose of life. But our consumer culture really has no interest in you asking what other purpose there might be, because there's no interest in stepping outside of that stream, because basically we keep the engine running. I will tell you a story because I care to. In my community, I live on a little island, and we have a backbone road. Then along that backbone, there's a south part of the island, north part. Along that backbone, there's about 4 shopping plazas, and then people come in from the hinterlands and shop there. During the pandemic, one of the shopping plazas, some businesses closed, because businesses failed. And in that weakened state, an out of state corporation that is professional in self-storage bought our shopping plaza. Nobody was paying any attention. And now they are raising the rents and the maintenance fees, and the stores are having to grapple with the fact that it's costing them more to stay open. And they're empty storefronts, and they've claimed the right to turn it all into self-storage. Now, can you imagine in a small island, in an island, a big island, but a small community, that one of 4 shopping plazas would be removed from the common good and put into storage? Why? Because they're within their rights, because there's not enough self-storage in this island, and there's tons of it. So this is such a commentary. It's like the thing you can't do in America. And I think that, my knowledge may be a little bit old, but maybe not. You cannot get between people and their right to their stuff. It's right to consume and keeping the economy going. It's my right. I'm an American. Telling people to like empty their self-storage is almost like telling somebody to, like, would you just, slit your gut open and let your, it's like,
Yeah.
it's like, and we're not even enjoying it. The sin is not materialism per se. It's not the acquisition. It's the failure to enjoy what you have. That is poverty. So we live, I just want to say finally, because I know we have to stop, we live in such a screwy world. And, if you feel strange, like a stranger in a strange land in this world, it's because it's a strange land. It's not you.
Right.
So your first step is sort of like off the treadmill, just, a little vacation from the endless, hungry ghost, just a little vacation, and just start to say, I'm sovereign, so I don't have to, I don't have to wear a mask or have your vaccine. That's not sovereignty. That's rebellion. I am a sovereign being. I'm making my choices. And yeah, anyway, I just sort of got off on a track, but I just wanted to say that we're in the middle of such a massive addiction. It's almost like you can measure the increase in self-storage as a way that we are sort of, addicts deflecting our confusion and our misery. And it's a very confusing time. The goals, even if they're shiny, even if you keep going for them, to basically win in a climate disrupted world is not to win.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I'm doing all the things I'm doing, is that in some way we need to, whatever we can stop about this destruction of the earth, we need to stop. Whatever we can mitigate, we need to mitigate. Whatever we can adapt to, we need to adapt to. And in a way, financial independence is a way to be adapted to whatever comes, so that you can show up not as one of the people that's just like, like so upset.
Right.
You can show up and be of use.
I love that.
That's my gig.
That's your gig. Well,
that's my gig, and I really welcome you to it.
I think, yes, welcome. Come all. Come one, come all. Well, I like it. And I'll say this as we wrap up is, I identify so much with your drive to have freedom and flexibility. That's my, what do they call it? The key motivators or whatever. I mean, that power, achievement, not so much. Connection, maybe a little. But definitely just having the freedom to do what I want. But what I love about what you're sharing about sovereignty and about flexibility is it also speaks to power and achievement people. Because if you're at a job that you hate, that you go to every day, and you're climbing a ladder that you don't even like because power and achievement, what if you didn't have to do that and you could do it in a way that brought you joy? I really love the flipping of the script and making it just turned upside down on its head in order to find a solution that is both meaningful, creative, and actually works. I mean, you've proved it. So I'm so glad that we spent time together today. And I would definitely recommend people checking out your books. Can you tell them where to find this book and your other one, and where to keep in touch with you if they want to learn more?
Okay, so I am going to take one more minute because I want to challenge something you just said.
Oh,
Thank
please.
you.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So it might take more than a minute. It might take 2 minutes. Okay.
I'll allow
So
it.
here's the deal.
Okay.
So, like, your money, your life has been about freeing oneself from the thrall of the consumer economy. So, and maybe freeing yourself for something, like I want to be free to travel. I want to be free to, like freeing yourself from shackles. But the further I went, I said, this is not all there is, because if you're only in that, I want to get free from the shackles, I want to be free to do what I want to do, you're missing the game, because there's two other freedoms. The third freedom is, what is freedom for? To what am I going to dedicate what my life energy? What is worth my doing? Not what do I want to do? That's freedom from or freedom to. It's what's worth my one wild and precious life. Where am I directing myself to? And always it's going to be a contribution. It's going to be something that, some little nip and tuck that you did in the whole story of humanity. What's your little thing that you're going to contribute to? And then if that's not hard enough, the final one is freedom with. I live in a world where every other being, it also desires freedom, but we're here together. How do I enact my freedom such that it benefits the whole, right? It's like it's like being on a street in New York City. How do I walk? How do I continue going forward with all this bustle around me? And not have the bustle be something that's in the way. The bustle is reality. This is a bustling reality. And so how can I be free with all the other beings who desire and are enacting their freedom? And that is social responsibility. And that really is higher consciousness. So I just want to clarify that when I talk about sovereignty, that's a first step, like know you are. But there's many steps beyond that. Now,
I love that. Thank you for that. That was beautiful.
So, yeah, you can find my books at your local bookstore. I have Your Money, Your Life, and my second book is called Blessing the Hands That Feed Us, What Eating Closer to Home taught me about food, community, and our place on earth. Lessons from a 10-mile diet. And I have a website, VickiRobin.com, where I sometimes blog a lot and sometimes not so much, no promises. And I have a podcast that I'm doing now that I love called What Could Possibly Go Right. You can find it on any podcast platform. And I interview people who I call cultural scouts, people who see far and serve the common good, and cultural and social artists, people who feel deeply and reveal the future to us. So those are my coordinates at the moment.
And they are excellent ones. Thank you so much for this amazing gift of your time.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Hey, you're still here. That's awesome. I hope to see you next week too. I talk with the most interesting people that you've probably never heard of. Most of them are paradoxical and bring an opportunity for you to grow as a person. So if you like bright, meaningful entertainment, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell for notifications.